You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. Brian Kelly and his staff riding a heater on the recruiting trail. Third commitment in 4 days. On Thursday, it was Andre Evans, a 4-star defensive back out of the state of Tennessee, pledging to the Tigers. He's the 18th commit for LSU's class. Shea Dixon, good enough to join us here now on Twitter at Shea Dixon. Of course, I'm on 3, the Bengal Tiger. Shady, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing really well, man. What can you tell us about Andre Evans?
Yeah, this is a kid who sprung up quickly kind of after his junior season this past fall. So he's a rising senior out of Nashville. And when the On3 rankings team got a look at him, they moved him up not just to a 4-star this offseason, but in track he was running 10.5s in the 100. He had some solid junior film. So they made him a top 100 prospect, which is kind of pretty far from where everyone else has him ranked right now. But it was clear that Matt, when he got to camps this summer and college coaches got a look at him, I think they were agreeing with kind of what the On3 view was of this is one of the better cornerbacks in America. And I think in the span of, at the start of June, just a few days, he had added LSU, Georgia, and Alabama offers. So about as big of a rise as you can get for a kid who at the time, NC State and a lot of other schools for the teams who had kind of been recruiting him heavily. So he shoots up a lot of boards. He came down to LSU's camp a week ago at the first elite camp, and he was the best corner there. And Brian Kelly pulled him aside and talked to him for a while. Robert Steeples, the corners coach, has done a very good job here recruiting the corner class, but then really getting in on Evans and getting a relationship with him and his camp up in Nashville. And he ends up shutting things down. He was scheduled to be at NC State this weekend and make some other visits. He wiped it all clean. He said, I wanted to announce my commitment today, which was Thursday, and then tomorrow he'll be in Baton Rouge for his official visit. So this one moved about as quickly as it can for a kid who blew up sort of late in the process, given he's about to be a senior.
Shay, I've seen that he played both offense and defense in high school. Did LSU, they are recruiting him as a defensive back?
Yes, as a corner. And right now we've got him ranked, as I said, on the top 100 player, but the number 1 prospect in Tennessee and the number 12 corner in the country. And I bet we could see him climb into that top 10 corner range. So we've talked, I've said it on your show, you've said it a million times. Whenever Brian Kelly took over, it was a multi-year rebuild at corner. And that's come to fruition through the reality of them taking all of these transfer corners a year ago, then doing it again this off season, because we look at the roster and they have one guy back at corner, and that's Laterrence Welsh, who was, a true freshman this past season. He played on special teams. And then you look at the high school signees they had in December and February, Matt, and only one was a true corner, and that was Jeremiah Hughes, who they went all the way out to Las Vegas to get. So it was high time that Robert Steeples knew, hey, look, we've got to buckle in this cycle, get some high school corners on board. And I believe this is their 3rd or 4th corner committed, and they won't be done yet. So they really wanted to rebuild this room with some young high school talent that they feel like they could come in, develop, and keep on campus for a few years.
Shay, one thing that we learned about with the previous staff was you didn't get an offer unless you came to camp, right? You had to come to camp to get your committable offer. What have we learned about how Brian Kelly handles things? Because it's pretty evident this week they put a lot of stock in what they saw, what they've seen so far in these elite camps.
Yes, and that's getting a lot of younger guys offered too, which I think will be the new norm. So we used to be way before they did the early signing period and then allowed kids to take official visits before their senior year even started. So all these kids who are doing official visits right now are juniors in high school, or they just finished their junior year of high school. So that really shifted what summer camp became, because so many of these kids use the month of June instead of camping. They're out making official visits. So it gives you a good eye on the future, and they made it pretty clear that, hey, if you come down and compete, that's where you're going to be front and center for a potential offer. And we've seen double-digit offers handed out, including a number of kids in Louisiana for the future who picked up offers. So still very much they care about camp, and the reason being is clear. If you're a coach, head coach, position coach, whatever it might be, you can evaluate a kid on film. You can watch him Friday night. You have access to every, I'm not talking huddle highlights, you have access to every all 22 that the kid has probably. But and you can watch him run track. You can do all these things, but until you have him in a camp setting, which is the only time that allows college coaches to be hands-on with recruits and put them through drills and put them one-on-one and have combine-type measurements for them and testing, that gives you so much more insight into what a kid's about on the field. And then meeting with him in person and seeing that competitive nature gives you a glimpse of how he is away from the field. So, yes, it is still very much, and with Frank Wilson there, it always will be, camp is a priority for them.
Couple more for you here, Shea. I wanted to ask about Kylan Billiot, the wide receiver out of Terrebonne, who committed earlier this week as well. It seems like, Shea, that's another one where the kid came to camp, blew up, and they're like, all right, here's your offer.
Yeah, and a good job there with Billiot. So I was doing Billy O about a year ago when I first heard, because anyone from south of I-10, I've messed up their name every which way from Sunday, and I think it's from trying too hard to give that Cajun flair to it. I think I called Daryl Simone until like his sophomore year of college.
Hey, so he's from the Lafayette area, right? He's from Eunice. Yeah, I mean, makes sense. By the way, I did ask a Bayou native how to pronounce Billiot's last name. So I made sure that before I went on air with it that I had it. So that was not anything that I just nailed. I did get it confirmed.
No, of course not. And that's why you have all those awards on your desk and all that. And I just presumed and just went out and started calling him that on the air and everywhere else, so without asking anybody. But, yeah, look, they picked up a year ago. They had him at camp. And this is a kid who had played basketball at Terrebonne and then made the move over to football. And we've seen this happen a lot, especially with skill players. And then they're a little bit behind on maybe football development, but you see the raw upside. I mean, this is a kid with an almost 80-inch wingspan. He can jump out the gym. And then he really put a focus into football this past year and started to pick up some offers. But unless you're going all the way down to Homa, you don't get to see on film kind of how good and promising of a prospect he is. And I think that's what benefits LSU. He had not stacked up on SEC offers yet because he hadn't hit that camp circuit where he's going around to each SEC school and nabbing offers. He made it a priority to go to LSU first, and they watched him work out again. They had him back for the 7-on-7 tournament this past weekend, a week ago. And from there, as soon as the tournament ended, he helped get Terrebonne all the way to the finals against LCA, who's obviously one of the best teams in the state. LCA wins, but right after that, the staff was right there with Billiot and handed him the offer, and he said, let me go home and tell my mom, and then we'll shut this thing down. And a few days later, he was a public commitment. So these are the type of guys I like a lot, too, who come to camp and earn it. Like DJ Chark did that in a year where he was overshadowed by some guys who were more highly ranked, Trey Quinn, Malachi Dupre. There were others in that cycle. And you get a kid coming out of Ash who works out at camp and, gets an offer where he didn't have any other big SEC offers at the time. And we saw how that one panned out. And if they have faith in what they can develop, then he's a pretty good raw prospect to take. And in my opinion, we could look back and say he ends up being the best receiver to come out of Louisiana this cycle.
He is Shea Dixon. He's on Twitter at Shea Dixon from On3. Hey, they're at 18 commits. I always have to think now in terms of the hard cap is gone, so they can sign as many as they want as long as they stay under the 85. So what's next, Shea? Like, where are they looking to positionally maybe load up, and how are they looking at numbers?
Yeah, I think the numbers thing isn't quite a concern yet just because they've done a good job of managing the board. So they've got official visits these next 2 weekends with rising seniors that I think will probably bring more clarity in terms of who they're getting, what positions are going to fill up. Offensive line is one where they have one guy committed, but Marcus Mescal announces on Monday. They've got 2 big targets coming in over the next 2 weekends in Blake Ivy and Ori Williams out of Texas, who are offensive linemen. So we could start to see maybe some of those dominoes fall. And really, it's a thing where I believe Brian Kelly said this, maybe it's signing day, but remember that first year where he signed like 15 high school kids and then I signed like 20-something transfers. And then the numbers kind of got a little bit more even. They signed 20-something high school kids and we're in the teens on transfers. I think they want to be, as Kelly said, closer to 30, let's say 28, 30 high school kids. And then you're taking 10 or fewer transfers and really just having to say transfers are best available or guys that can come in and help us win right now, not having to fill out our entire roster with transfers. That's something they want to lean much more on, hey, let's recruit high school kids, let's develop them. And what I really like that they're doing, Matt, is of those 18 guys, the big majority is from Louisiana. And beyond Louisiana being per capita one of the highest producing talent states for college or the NFL or whatever metric you want to use, and using Louisiana kids wanting to play at LSU, the transfer portal era, I look at that 2020 recruiting class, which had like Eric Gilbert and all those guys in it. Obviously, that was a COVID year. 18 of the 22 guys have already transferred out, which is wild. And then 16 of those 18, Coy Moore and TJ Finley being the only ones who weren't, are out-of-state guys. So in the transfer portal era, if you're losing the majority of the out-of-state guys you signed because they're not playing or whatever it might be, and you're turning around in the portal and trying actively to get Louisiana natives back home, well, why not just start there? Why not just load up on Louisiana guys that you feel good about out of high school? And I think they've done that this cycle, and I think guys like Billy Hott are a very good example of it.
Andre Evans, the latest, LSU up to 18 commits 3 in 4 days. What a heater for Brian Kelly and the staff right now. Make sure you're following him on Twitter at Shea Dixon, On3 the Bengal Tiger. You can get there and subscribe up as well. Shea, we appreciate you as always, man. Thanks for jumping aboard.
Absolutely. Anytime, Matt.
All right, man. Be well. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.